yeah, it's really nice. It's kind of like a seminar setting for us, being here all together. So the background or the context of this panel is that we are from the Freie Universität, Department of African Art. I'm a lecturer and here are many students. I quickly introduce, this is Lea, I'm Anna, Antonia, Meija, Chidimma, and we are kind of representative for a whole group. So all what we discussed and researched about, it's also an effort or the entire group did. So there's also Angelina, Zoe, another Zoe, Crisanti, Emilia, Freda. Did I miss someone? Alex, of course. So, yeah. And yeah, we're really happy to be here dans le cadre de l'exposition of Ken Aïcha. So, yeah, we'll start. So, in May and June 2025, the seminar in the depots of Ethnographic Museums from the Art History Department of Freie Universität Berlin embarked on a journey to trace the collection histories of modern Senegalese art. As part of our research, we visit the storage depots of the Weltkulturen Museum in Frankfurt and Iwalewahaus in Bayreuth. Inspired by a preceding collaborative seminar initiated by Ken Aïcha Sy and me, in the winter of 2024, the students were introduced to Ken Aïcha's project Survival Kit. This project seeks to give visibility to modern Senegalese artworks from the 1960s to the 1990s, works that are dispersed across European museums collections and largely unknown within Senegal itself. As students and lecturers from Freie Universität Berlin, we wish to contribute to this effort of making these artworks more visible. In the spirit, we made a booklet, front pages here, presenting the works we encountered during our research, visiting to the depots of the Weltkulturen Museum and the Iwalewahaus. For those of us who have studied Senegalese artistic development, especially cultural and political shift marked by the country's independence in 1960 and the presidency of Léopold Sédar Senghor, who established a remarkable artistic infrastructure such as the École de Dakar under the philosophy of négritude, it was a profound experience to encounter these cultural treasures stored away in museums depots. These artworks bear witness to a rich and complex cultural and artistic history, one that remains largely hidden from people on the African continent. With this booklet, which we will present today, we aim to complement Ken Aïcha Sy's survival kit by contributing to the opening of archives, the circulation of knowledge, and the sharing of histories. To this end, we have listed and described all the Senegalese works held in the Weltkulturen Museum's collection, including artwork biographies. This is meant to counterbalance the absence of visual reproductions, image we cannot include due to copyright restrictions. These reasons behind the inaccessibility of these works and images are complex. They speak to layered entanglements of power relations between individuals across Europe and Africa, shaped by museum structures in Europe, visa regulations, and politics of access. The archive, while intended for the preservation and safeguarding of artworks, creates spatial and symbolic distance, not only from audience of the African continent, but also from the public in Germany, effectively isolated the artworks from the outside world. This panel, with this panel, we aim to reflect on and discuss our research experiences, sharing the diverse impressions, emotions, thoughts, and questions that these encounters have evoked in us. At the same time, we hope to open a dialogical and empathic exchange with the experiences of Ken Aïcha Sy, who visited the depots of the Weltkulturen Museum in 2021 in Iwalewahaus, and also the Iwalewahaus, in search of the legacy of modern Senegalese art. through our collective voices, we seek to portray the depot not merely as a space of storage, but as a site of lived experiences. So, in the spirit, yes, we will start, and the first thing we will discuss is, what were your experiences at the Weltkulturen Museum? Antonia, do you want to start?
Yes, of course. Hello. The Weltkulturen Museum was, I think for me, it was an experience full of ambivalence of many kinds. These depots are not in the museum, are more in like an industrial sort of almost suburb of Frankfurt am Main. And it's very difficult to imagine that collections of art pieces and artifacts of all over the world, not only West Africa or Senegal, are stored there. And you see this modern building very camouflaged in the industrial landscape. And it's the first question I had was like, why do we collect these things? Why are these objects being collected? Then of course at the same time when you're in there and you get to see this collection, it's truly an honor, and it's so special. It feels definitely like opening the lid of a treasure, and so that's interesting, like the problematics of collecting, and at the same time having the privilege and the honor to visit a collection and an archive. At the same time, these spaces are. So another question that arises is like, what's the purpose of artworks, and what is it like? It's quite emotional, of course, and what I was thinking, like, what does it feel like to be in here when the lights are off and nobody is visiting the archive in maybe months? Or, I mean, the last time these artworks were shown in an exhibition, sometimes it's even a decade or more. So what does it look like when nobody's doing research on them, nobody's like, I don't know, taking care of them, and the lights are off? And it's very strange to imagine these artworks in a dark space where you can't see them, and like, yeah. At the same time, I had the impression that they're very well preserved, and the conditions are very well and carefully kept for the artworks to remain. And as artworks, of course, they remain their strength, and they're very, very sturdy beings, I would say. And even the darkness, even the archive, even everything, they definitely remain and keep their light, I would say, inside of them. So very, very special to be there. Yeah, feels like an honor, and it makes it like so urgent, right? That we think we all felt this urgency to know, how come nobody knows about this? How come you can not see these artworks anywhere, in any website? In some of them, maybe in some books and stuff, but actually most of them, from what I understand, are not really out there. And so biographies are missing, descriptions are missing. It was intense and beautiful and sad. Yes. So, do you wanna? Should I?
So, when I think about depots, I think they're very tidy. You can find everything very easily. It's all well arranged. So on this photo, it also looks like it. I don't know if we have other photos. But when we entered this depot, it was not all arranged. It was kind of a surprise because there were artworks on these metal grids, very orderly, as you can see, but there were also a lot of artworks stapled above each other. Some were packed, some were unpacked, leaning against the wall, nothing to secure them in between. And this was really surprising for me. These metal structures, they could be pulled open and closed, And we divided into 2 teams. One team looked at those drawings and prints, and the other team looked at the mostly paintings on the metal grids. And they were not grouped by collection or by country. So we got a list, we received a list from Weltkulturen Museum, and we could try to find our artwork. Because there was a Senegalese artwork next to an Ethiopian artwork, and artworks where I don't even know where they are from because there's nothing, no description, no name of the artist, not even a photo or something, I think. Yeah, and sometimes, like with one piece I wanted to find, it was not even, because they all have a number, it was not even where its number was. I had to look in the entire room, and then I saw, it's leaning against this one wall. And that's kind of crazy, because I imagine it to be very well prepared and easy to find. Yeah, and also, so I explained this order, but then also there was a very, very strict order policy with the climate, for example. They were looking after the humidity, the temperature, with their thermohygrographs. So it was something in between very, very orderly and very, very unorderly. Yeah, and it was, but what was very special about this visit is that we could be very close with these artworks. We could touch them while wearing gloves. When are you ever allowed to touch these fragile artworks? I mean, I have never had this opportunity before in a museum. Yeah.
It was your first experience like it?
Yeah, it was my first time like this.
Here you see also what Meija said. There were some artworks stored in this registern, or what it is, and then registers, and then on the right there were, for example, some artwork just leaned there, and there were other corners also artwork. So I think it's a really good description. It seemed very structured. It seems very structured, but then also very chaotic, and you cannot really find it. It's so difficult to navigate in these spaces. Giwa?
Hello. I'm going to talk a bit about the Iwalewahaus in Bayreuth, which was a totally contrasting experience, contrasting to the Weltkulturen Museum, which was actually really almost sad in a way, because my expectations were quite low, because I thought, okay, we're going to have a very strict, very rigid kind of interaction with the art. But it kind of had like a 180 turn. It was a really wonderful experience, also just very different. So we had kind of a guided tour with Regis, who you can see there in that picture. And he's a staff member and I think also student.
He was a student and now he does his volontariat there.
Yeah, of the Universität in Bayreuth. And yeah, he gave us a very fully guided tour and very knowledgeable tour of the artworks and the collections that concerned our research. And however, with Regis, we weren't allowed to touch anything, and we also weren't allowed to take pictures of anything, only of fragments. So it was almost physically more distant, but personally or maybe mentally or emotionally a bit more closer. Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's just cut that off. Yeah, we were only like in the lower corner allowed to take like pieces, pictures of the pieces. And the one thing that really struck out to me during our time there was kind of this notion of, or the sense of productivity, because I felt in the Weltkulturen Museum it was always a cycle, like when we were talking to a curator, but also talking internally about how we go about with these artworks. It was always like okay, but what can we do? You know, we're always highlighting these issues and, you know, these debates and conversations, but what can we do to actually digitalize them, or what can we do to highlight or visualize them? Did I just say that? Yeah, these artworks. And Regis was actually really critical about his position within the institution, but also his position as a student and someone who's actually interested in the single pieces of art, and who actually, he kept on asking himself during the tour, what is this? What do you think this is? Like, I would love to know what this is, but I don't know. And I also don't know where to start my research. And yeah, it was just a really productive conversation that was held, where there was a sense of self-reflection, but also self-reflection that wasn't stuck in, yeah, this rigidness that there are so many obstacles that can't be, yeah, overthrown or pushed to the side. Yeah, he gave us a lot of input and a lot of critical input that I think we also added into our booklet and also into our research, when it comes to what are the steps that we can do or that we are able to do. Like, for instance, having this booklet. Of course, we aren't able to add the pictures in because not enough digitalization or the copyright issues, but I think that also, again, highlights in the booklet, like, okay, we have these images, we're able to see these images with our own eyes, but what about the people on the continent and the artists who these images belong to? They don't maybe know that they're there, or yeah, they don't have any access, even though, like, it is being said also in the restitution debate that there is a sense of accessibility online. But then what does that accessibility look like? And I think those are questions that were kind of thrown at us and that we were confronted in those spaces.
Yeah, so something I also found very interesting about the Iwalewahaus was the building itself, because it used to be an old bank and they used the old vaults as the depots. So there was a very thick door, metal door, that yeah, segregated us with the artworks, and it was a little bit symbolic for how they gatekeep the artworks in there. Yeah, so I totally agree with Chidimma. It was a very different experience than in the Weltkulturen Museum, because we were not allowed to interact with the art. And yeah, but what was really wonderful was the experience with Regis. Yeah, he was very critical and he answered all of our questions, and he told us about a seminar that he holds with students from the University of Bayreuth, where they all go together to the depot and look at the artwork and discuss the artwork. So I wondered, yeah, if other museums also do the same with students in their cities, and yeah, that it should be implemented more to let students inside so they can work with the artwork. He also encouraged us to work more with the archives of Bayreuth. He told us that if you are a researcher, you're allowed to access them for research purposes. And yeah.
So when we had the preparation for our panel there, so we sat all together and reflected on how it was and what we want to say. And then was one comment of Chrisanti. Maybe you can tell how it was to really engage, to see the Papa Ibratal, or like tapestry artwork. So like the moment really engaged with these artworks was, I think that was a really nice example.
Hello. Thank you for mentioning it. Yeah, we were looking through the paper artworks that were laid out on the table for us, and we're just kind of going through them. You know, lots of question marks, as they said. We don't know. We were trying to find out when, from whom, and so on. And then this one popped up on the right, the orange, colorful one with the purple.
It's really amazing. Yeah.
And the 3 figures. And in the seminar that I had with Anna, I think 1 year ago, I wrote my what is it called? My essay, my paper on tapestries, modern Senegalese tapestries. So I researched a lot about it, and I learned that the manufacturing for tapestries that was that exists even to this day in Dakar was also had École de Dakar artists make these sort of miniature paintings that are going to be the basis of which the huge, amazing tapestries are going to be made of. So when I saw this, I was like, this looks like a tapestry. And then we turned it around, and it really was. And it was one of the main cartoniers, the people who made these sketches, designs. Yeah, and it was an amazing moment. And everyone was really happy and excited. And yeah, I will never forget it. Yes. We also thought, we also thought where the tapestry is, and that's also another question and so on. Yes.
We saw some of them in Paris at the exhibition Paris Noir. They have a lot of stuff. Centre Pompidou. So next research. So after these experiences in the depot, especially at the Weltkulturen Museum, because we were there first, and then we thought, okay, what we do about it, and we were very stuck with this institutional critique thing. What we found is really important to address how museums still structure this hegemony of knowledge and how inaccessible they are, but also as Chidimma said, but what can we do? Yeah, and that do we write like a book about institutional critique? But what happened with the artwork? So instead we thought about it, how we can we write this book and come along more of, try to make these artworks accessible in a way that we cannot print, because as some of you also already said, there are copyright issues, and at the same time in Weltkulturen Museum and also at Bayreuth at Iwalewahaus, they have no digitalization of the images. Some are digitalized, but not many. So it's really not even the basic are there. So, but then instead we decided to engage with these artworks and describe them, and maybe you guys can reflect on your process in engaging with these artworks, working, writing, researching about it.
Yes. Well, it's very, we were very excited, of course, to be there and see these artworks, and it's contrast a lot with this atmosphere that you encounter from the people that are taking care of these collections are very nice, and they're doing a good job with the resources that they have, but the artworks are, I think we all felt that they are sort of stuck in a hole of like bureaucracy, like laziness and ignorance, really, because nobody's an expert. Everybody says like, I don't really know what's here so much. It's like West African, like, and maybe some this and this artists, but that's it. Nobody's actively digitalizing the artworks and doing research and sort of moving forward the collection. And there's not enough research from the government in Frankfurt and Main, so it's like this very, very thick, like slow atmosphere, and we're full of energy, and we're like students, and we think we can do it, and we want to. And so it was, we had this at the end of the day in Weltkulturen Museum. We were talking about what to do, and should we focus our efforts on criticizing, let's say, or writing about the institutional like what I just called like laziness and ignorance, and which is not personal at all, but it's just like the atmosphere, let's say, like the state of things. Or should we, or like, I mean, should we try to digitalize the artworks, and should we try to? So this is part of like, should we try to, from our the resources that we have as students from the uni, and like with Anna and our seminars, what can we do to make them more accessible? Kind of putting aside the institution. The institutions are dealing with themselves, but we can maybe try to digitalize them. We can maybe try to take a step to make them more accessible. And the booklet is a first step, I would say. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get the copyrights and then we can make something else. Yeah. Yeah. Not sure that answers the question really, so, but yeah. Okay. So
Who wants to add something?
So this experience to go to these different depots, it raised question about access, colonial continuities, knowledge hierarchies, because who knows that those depots exist? Who controls them? Who has the power to open them up? Who has the power to tell the stories? The artworks would tell themselves maybe, and also who has the power to mute them. And with this booklet, because we weren't allowed to use the photos, we created very detailed descriptions of the artworks to include them, and we placed a placeholder next to it where a picture could be inserted at a later point when it's either digitalized or when those copyright issues are cleared that the museums have.
Yeah. And I think another thing that was really kind of hindering also our process of research was, again, the lack of knowledge that was there generally, so not just from the institutions, but also from, you know, online or books or other research that was made outside of the institutions, because not only did we want to, you know, create these description about the images, but we also wanted to actually have knowledge about these images and about the artists that are, you know, creating these beautiful pieces of art. And it was really, really difficult, like, to, you know, if we also, or let me phrase like this, the knowledge is very, very, very small, even within our own institution. So we're also coming from a space of unknown. And so you would think, or I think some of us also thought that maybe when going into these institutions that have these pieces of art, they would have more knowledge and also more just context. But that was really not it, and we really had to, you know, take a deep dive ourselves, which is wonderful and amazing. There again, there was again a huge obstacle, and we couldn't find anything, or something very minimal, or something that, you know, you want to include local and indigenous voices. And if, again, this research is coming from the outside, you don't only want to base your research or your answers on that research. You know, you want to have like an inclusive and whole image. And also maybe a voice from the artists themselves, and that was just not really found. So that was really difficult kind of while creating the booklet. And another thing that really stuck with me as well when visiting the depots was, I think, Antonia, you mentioned it kind of also with the laziness, how when there are, how do you call it? Possible solutions that are being proposed, let me say it like that, there's always a contra, or there's always like a I don't want to call it excuse, but maybe like a justification of why that cannot happen. And yeah, as you said, like we're students, we're like full of energy, we're trying to, contribute and, to create something, but then we're again stuck in this, in this laziness. So it's really, it's always like a negative and then it's a positive experience. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a lot of back and forth in our WhatsApp group because we were trying to describe the pictures. We had a list with all of the pictures that were in the Weltkulturen Museum, and we were trying to find pictures of them, and we really had to gather everything up that we took at the Weltkulturen Museum to be able to write these descriptions. And so that was the first hurdle that we've met, just to write. And yeah, so we very naively also first thought that we could just use the pictures that we took there. That was wrong, that we discovered that in Bayreuth while talking with Regis. And yeah, so I also wondered, can we also like do justice to the pictures? Can we really describe them correctly, because also there's like a cultural difference, and these descriptions are still from a Western lens, and people from the community, they will describe them differently. There is some, especially the artwork from the Negritude that has also that has a lot of proverbs, Senegalese proverbs, or symbolisms that we don't understand because we're socialized in the West. So yeah, that was also very difficult to research about that and to find information on the imagery that we had to describe. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Alex, you had some also an example with that you was researching about cosmology, no? And maybe you can say something about this.
Yeah, I think also that's what Chidimma was also talking about, that what kind of knowledge we want to reproduce. And I really also wanted to go to not just describe it visually, that's how we do it also in art history, but because also from the name, I knew that it was about cosmology. And then I was looking for it, and then I only found an article written by an anthropologist, French anthropologist, about it. And I was like, do I want to use this kind of descriptions and European knowledge again? So then I decided not to use it at all and just stay by the just visuals. But yeah, that's the question of like, that we are very much also embedded in the systems of traditional or canon art history, the ways of description, like the ways of all this specific informations, but we don't really engage with the symbolism of this work. So that's a bit sad, and of course, yeah, it feels like there's so much knowledge that we just don't have. It's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, and I think that's one of our main results from this experiences, from this discussion, reflecting on of this. Okay, there is on the one side there are so many artworks, archival material within these depots on the one hand, and then on the other hand there is so less knowledge. And how can this discrepancy can be solved? And yeah, I think that's the so in our discussion we thought, okay, that's the first step to kind of engage with these artworks and make them visible. And so an idea is also to continue with this research project next year within another seminar to then get really the authorization of the artist and the images, and maybe go more into a deep research, a dialogue with the artist. But so this is really like a first step for us, engaging with it. And how many artworks we have here? Like not all, no? In the Weltkulturen Museum there are 47, and we have 40, I think. 35, yeah. And 2 from Bayreuth, and in Bayreuth there are also so many, and they don't even know what they have. It's really like a mess.
I think they have the biggest. I think Bayreuth has the biggest contemporary and popular art collection in Europe, or was it the world? African, yeah. In Europe, yeah. So yeah, we also discovered that in Bayreuth. It was very crazy that it's in a small village in South Germany.
Maybe we can, so like our academic kind of research approach to this whole discussion is, I think, talking about in the context of also restitution, which not only means to restitute artworks, but also restitute knowledge and what has been lost through these neo-colonial structures within museums, and how can we take it back. And maybe you can, because we talked so much about it, again revisit this dynamic between, or the discrepancy between the artworks and storage and the lack of research around it, and how can we frame also an academic, productive, institutional critique.
Yes, yes, of course. Well, yeah. Another question, of course, that we had was why are these artworks here? How come did they arrive here? And there are many reasons for that. Of course, part of that, especially the collection in Weltkulturen Museum. This collection happens to be there because of personal relationships between artists and collectors at that time. So it was, and of course, it's as there we are, as it's this sort of paradoxical structure in the idea of collecting art at the time was a progressive thing and was a good thing to do, to collect this art, have it in one place. And our research is a positive result of that. We are young students that are able to go and visit it wherever it is. It happens to be in Frankfurt, right? So, but then it's like, so that was probably the good moment and the good place for that collection and those artworks to find the home here. But it's important to revisit that decision and come back to that question. And is this museum, the Weltkulturen Museum, in this city, Frankfurt am Main, in this country, the good place, like the right, the adequate space for this collection to exist? And well, clearly not, because it's just been stored. It's just been sort of hidden away because there's little to no effort to make it accessible, even though, I mean, yeah, it's difficult to really believe that there are no resources for that. So, yeah, so it's important, I think, to revisit that question. Where should this collection be, and who has the capacity right now in the world to bring this collection, let's say, to the outside world and to make it more accessible? And maybe it's an institution in Senegal, maybe it's an institution somewhere else in Europe, or maybe it's in another way. So that's kind of an interesting approach, I think, to the question of restitution and the restitution of knowledge. That is much more complex, of course, than just saying because the artwork is Senegalese, then it should go to Senegal. But maybe that. And
to add on to that, I think it's also important to kind of not only see the restitution debate and discussion, and then the action behind it, and to see, as you said, like this huge just give back. I think there are so many more layers to the restitution when it also comes to knowledge of where are the artworks, who can access them, the people who these or the artists that these artworks belong to. Do they know that they're here? Do they have any access whether it's online, personal, you know, overseas, I don't know, to have an access to these works. And for instance, I remember in a different seminar, we were also talking about the restitution, specifically about statues, but there was one argument that said kind of the West or Europe should also be able to gain access of knowledge to these pieces. And that really, like, it shook me for a moment, because I was like, why? I think Europe or the global North, I feel like that's like 10 steps behind for, like, on the priority list. I think when it comes about, like, when we're talking about the restitution, I think the
Context of origin.
yeah, I feel like that should be the first thing that comes to mind, and not Europe, and not, or the global North, and not the institutions. And yeah, I think there are so many tiny steps, or that are even bigger in meaning, that can be made before one can think about giving back pieces of work. I think we also talked about how, with, for instance, the digitalization, I mean, us as students, but also at other universities, there are most likely also a lot of students that are eager to help with that process of digitalization voluntarily. No money, no nothing. Like, we'll spend our time and effort and energy to, you know, contribute to that. Yeah, the whole movement of that. But I think that's really being overlooked, and I feel like that far goal is only being put in focus when one can actually take, like, just a tiny step towards restitution.
Just to follow up on this, I think this is also a lack of money. There's one person in Weltkulturen Museum in Frankfurt who's the curator of Africa, and she has to take care of 70,000 objects. I mean, this is just too much for one person. There should be, like, they should work together with universities, for example, yeah, and they should also have more employees and get more funding. And but I think, if I recall correctly, Iwalewahaus, which is part of the university in Bayreuth, they do have a data bank where they digitalized the artworks, and the students did this, so they had the cooperation. It's just very hard to access and to find.
The database that they did is also kind of an illegal database, because they're not actually allowed to show the pictures there. But still, it's already a good step, because they really have everything there described, and if you Google it up, you can find it online. So yeah, I think that was also a point what Meija said, the resources, and that there's too little people working in the museums, that we always came back to while talking together in the class. Because, I mean, we all know that the state is cutting down culture and cutting down the humanities, and the first ones who get cut are the marginalized parts of culture. And so that was also something we always came back to while discussing together. And knowledge production. I feel like the museums, since they have all the artwork, they have the power to produce the knowledge. And if they are really serious about decolonization, they have to make a step into making the artwork visible, so that non-Western people have access to it and can produce their own way of knowledge and have a decolonial knowledge production.
Before, I would really like to open the floor for maybe someone has some question. But before this, we just want to as we said, it's the first effort, so that's our front page. And yeah, so here are all the artworks listed. We have an introduction where we yeah, describe the context, and I mean, I think it has been clear, but it's really like the Senegalese art scene and what comes from this period, École de Dakar, which is what Ken is researching about. It's so, I don't know, I cannot even describe it. It's so rich. I mean, it's unbelievable what kind of artworks there are. It's really, it's a treasure. And all the history also about Senghor and Négritude and the counter movements, and it's just an amazing art scene. It's if you and then if you see what's hidden here, you cannot even describe it. So yeah, that's the context which we described at the beginning, and then what was really important for us was these experiences in the depot. So we have one chapter where we all are in it, like a multi-vocal encounter with these depots, where we wrote a text about it, and recall all these different aspects we just said here. And then we have the work biographies, and then written by the students. And then at the end we have a conclusion where we also raise questions, again, follow-up question, what can we, how we can continue. And I think what we want to do next year is, as I said, like to really try to get these images, and maybe, and I would like to do a collaboration with Berger and the Iwalewahaus and their students, so that we have like a whole group of students and lecturers who do research about it, and also connect to the community in Dakar, and to Ken, of course, and maybe do like an Instagram account or something to make it. Maybe it's this a way to more democratisieren the artworks, and to circulate them. Yeah. So yeah, but
and this booklet is in English and French.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we want to publish this on your website. And our university website, and everybody who wants, we have first to clear if this is okay to show, because I was in contact with VG Bildkunst. It's really heikel, so I think we have to cut here some, because here you see the Amadou Ba, which is also presented at the, and if you see like entire artworks, it can be difficult. You think, because I talked to them, and they were really like, you cannot do it. Yeah. They are so, I mean, you cannot publish the artworks itself, no? So for publications and online presence. But she, as I said, can we maybe show like, because one idea we had was just to show like a detail to trigger like this, okay, what is the image about, and then she like interpreted it as that I want to get around the legal thing, or like find a shortcut. So, and no, you cannot do it. So, and also like these images where you see many of the many images. And that what Regis also told us, no? If you can cut out the image, then you could spread it, and then you get into court. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, but maybe there are any questions? Yeah.
So, just a big thanks, because I know what does it mean to go in a depot. I mean, to go there, to pack, unpack, to find dirty catalogs in some dusty corner of the museum to talk with the people of the museum. And I also, I don't know who said about the laziness, and I mean, there is behind of, I work self in a depot, in the IFA depot, and we have more or less 24,000 artworks. And IFA started more than 5 years ago this project of digitalization, and it's a huge project. But I know what you mean when you talk about laziness. Is a huge bureaucratic machinery behind every deposit, and I also really understand when you say about that who has the artworks has also the power and the possibility for to give information. And I mean, we know everybody that we are in a really difficult political moment, and all the populistic and right-wing governments, they prefer to use the money in different ways. So of course, I mean, from the IFA side, I can say that there is we want to do more. There is a lot to do. There is a lot to do, and I'm sure there is a lot to do everywhere. And but I was just thinking, what's the official statement of this museum of Frankfurt and Iwalewahaus when there is this huge lack of information? What they say? What is the? I mean, it's not possible just to say, we don't know. It's not enough. And then another question, and what's the future project of them? Because of course, this digitalization is a project, but I mean, it's just a big word. Digitalisierung in Germany is a big word for everything and for nothing.
Okay.
If there is something concrete from these museums.
I'll follow up on what you said, Stefano, because just as a transition, adding with very different casquette, the one from IFA, and thank you for sharing this, because you have been so key in this moment of transition. Pardon, Stefano, I give this moment of transition when the storage starts to think about opening up and moving and being in circulation. Again, I've been following it just from the side because I'm in charge of the gallery in Berlin. It's another department, and Stefano has been able to do both and to really be concretely on the field, thinking about the storage, being in the storage, and with all every day-to-day practical difficulties of accessibility, but also at the same time understanding how an institution, I'll give the example of IFA here, how an institution in Germany is starting to think about the artworks in circulation, and not as a one-off, just to show, but long-term circulation. And beside the word circulation, I would like to add the word conversation, because it's a shift which I hope it's still a process. I'm not speaking on behalf of IFA. I have the feeling that the shift is happening, and I hope it is happening in many different institutions in Germany. I hope a shift from arrogance and centralizing the knowledge and keeping it like this and not making it available, or from time to time decided who has accessibility to it. So this shift from arrogance and centralization to a shift of humbleness and understanding that there is no way to be able to be part of a global conversation by keeping this attitude. And I hope this attitude is happening now and is starting. And so this shift of humbleness and of being in conversation is something that I hear a lot in the testimonies that you have shared now. For the second part, where you think about the continuity, let's imagine this conversation. What would it mean for you to have this ideal conversation? I just take snippets of what you said. You talked about practitioners who are on the place, in the places where the works have been created. You've been talking about conversation with institutions where there is, of course, you gave the example of Regis and it's great, but much more than that. How can an institution like, for instance, here with the Weltkulturen Museum or Iwalewahaus can be in a much more sustainable, longer and deeper conversation with you, so that at the end everyone wants the same thing, is these works to circulate. What would it mean? How can we bring researchers together to create more forms of knowledge for them in order for them to circulate? So it's really trying to understand from your perspective what could be this ideal conversation with which kind of actor, thinking about very concretely what you would have in mind for the next year, but also to the audience with different people with very different background and understanding and involvement, understanding from their part what would be this ideal contribution, and to really have an as concrete as possible example and how to do it next year. And last part, of course, I would be more than happy and honored to host it on the website of IFA, and however IFA can contribute, at least from the part of the gallery, we are very happy and honored to accompany this project. So, of course, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so important question. I think one thing I want to make clear, that these institutions that we visit, they were very supportive. No? So the curator Julia Friedl at the Weltkulturen Museum, she welcomed us very warmly and showed us around. We had time to be there, and we can revisit. And also the people from the Iwalewahaus, they were very open and friendly, and they also want to continue this kind of work and exchange. And Sigrid, she told Sigrid Albert Horsch, she's the custodian of the Iwalewahaus collection. She also wants to collaborate with us so that this knowledge can be not only circulate but also emerge together and research together. So. Yeah, that's one thing, but so make it clear. But maybe, is there anyone from? Yeah.
Thank you, first of all, for this amazing work, and I'm really proud of you because it was a long journey since the seminar, and I'm also really happy that you experiment that. So it's not just my point of view, it's also yours now. And I want also to add, we have this expertise in Senegal, so it's totally possible to imagine one of those conservateurs or historiens de l'art came. Yeah. They can invite them. It's totally possible to invite them to spend time in the storage, and it will be also really interesting to invite the students in Senegal, because they don't have the privilege as you had to came and visit, even if it was hard for you. But at the end, you had access, thanks to Anna and thanks to the university behind. But so we have solutions. It's not just about money. To be in this creative scene, it's also mean to be creative on the way to practice. And I would like also to add something. I was at the Manufacture de Thiès, Manufacture des Arts Décoratifs de Thiès last week, and they can host residency. There is all the infrastructure, so if you want to do internships there, it's possible. But is that possible to do in the opposite way? To invite also those students to do an internship at Weltkulturen, at Iwalewahaus, and so give them also the possibility to, again, work with those artworks. And the tapestry of Pape Ibratal, they are not just here, they are also in France, in US, in UK, everywhere, in fact. And what you say about the Canva was also really interesting, because when I was doing this visit last week, they explained me again, as an artist, the manufacturer buy an artwork from the artist, and they have the right to do 8 copies, not 9, not 10, 8 copies of the artwork. And there is a huge process of working on the size, how to put on the good échelle the artwork. So it's really interesting. I was like, oh, I would like to be a student and spend time there. And so you are. So it's totally also possible for you guys to just imagine, you know, next year maybe you can apply for fundings and came to Senegal and work with, but not just came and take the knowledge, also came and work with the students in Senegal and imagine, as we do, this kind of bridge and sharing experiences. I'm really, again, happy to have you here in this space, and it was obvious for me that to invite you, right? And I would like also to add something about the digitalization. Yes. Bref, Alexandra Kunke was a data curator at Iwalewahaus, and I meet her there. And Iwalewahaus starts, so back then, it was 3 years ago, but they start this long process of digitizing the artwork, and she was in charge of that. And she spent 5 years to digitize 3,500 pieces, 3,500 pièces. And it was a long process, really complex. And it also means to have all the logistics behind to be able to do it. And she was, and the interview is online, so you can also have access to it. She was saying, they create a website so people can have access. And if you, for example, want to do a publication in one of those, you will pay something, I don't know, 20 euros or something. Depending on what you want to do, they will give you the authorization to have high quality or a less quality or one copy. Or so there is people who was thinking about that before you arrive, and they are like good people. Alexandra Kunke, she's on our she's not, she's on our side, and and she is she is also she became also a mother, but she don't work anymore at Iwalewahaus. But and since she leave, the website is down. So this is also another question: is that relevant to digitize everything? What's happened when the people leave? What's happened if we have a cyber attack? What's happened if we don't have internet anymore? So all of those questions you face now, I face them on my daily life. And it's really good also to hear you having those, So thank you so much. If someone wants to say something, you are so welcome.
I also want to say I'm really thankful to hear all of your perspectives, because as we discovered before, I studied in the same department some time ago, and I'm really happy to see and hear you and hear your voices on this, because back then it was already really hard to voice out these ruptures, these difficult struggles, hurdles in order to bring forward a more decolonial lens and a more decolonial practice to the whole construct of global art history. I mean, it's named like this, but we know how it goes sometimes there. It's still really like, if you ask me, old-fashioned, bureaucratic, hierarchical, and you're doing a lot to change that. And I hope that this whole thing will lead to more collaborations. Also seeing some people in the room, you know. I think this is the only way to go forward with this. We need to bring together our resources and share them equally. I think this is also what is often the problem. It's like quite asymmetric. And yeah, that's just it. So, and thank you again. And thank you, Ken Aïcha, because also you create a round circle moment for so many of us, I think, and you enable us to like talk about these things with a different kind of positioning, with a different kind of impact, which is hardly seen here. And it's something really big you're doing.
Anyone?
Back at the very back.
My friend Meija.
Hi, friend Meija.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm going to stand up because I'm so far away. And great work. It was super nice to listen to you, and I think it's a beautiful idea to do this collaboration, because from the perspective, like working within a museum is exactly what I tried to put in as well. It's like we have students here, I'm boss based in Frankfurt, and you can feel the kind of resistance because of the bureaucracy, and people don't open the doors, not that they don't want, but they really don't have the mental capacity, the physical capacity, and they think they don't have the financial, which I doubt, because I think they have if they want to. So I think it's a beautiful chance to make that happen, to bring them together and continue the work you did. But my question was from because I don't know who mentioned it, like the reason why the artworks are there. It's like such a harsh, violent history, and it has been kind of left out within the conversation today. So my question was a bit, how much did you had the chance to engage with it? You said there was no text, no access, no copies. So how could we, bring that also to the conversation, not to make people feel bad about what happened, but to make people understand why we have that conflict and why are they there and why we need to talk about it and why we have to make a space to understand that, personal families have been affected, there's exploitation, there's a knowledge that has been kept there, but due to certain, context where they've been took here. That's why we raise the conversation. It's not because they were brought and it's nice to have them there and now they're stored in the archive. No, people took them from people and they belong also to their families, and maybe that's something that can be included at some point. But did you have a chance to know and find out something about that, or was that a question that were raised for you? Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I think Antonia said it at one point that actually the collection of the Weltkulturen Museum is really special and really was at that time very progressive, because it was a collaboration of Friedrich Axt, was a German linguist and patron, and Ken Aïcha Sy's father, and Aïcha Sy as the first African curator and artist who collected this collection. So it was under the former director of Joseph Thiel in 1984. So that's not a case of looted art or violent required acquaintance. But 40 years later, and through my work with Ken Aïcha, it's a shift of discourse, and there's a different claim. There's a claim from people from the African continent who, Ken Aïcha, but also many other people, artists, intellectuals, cultural workers, who say, okay, where is this knowledge? And we face like a different discourse, also inspired, of course, by the restitution debate, that, okay, there are these collectioned old African artworks, but also modern artworks, and they are kept in this depots and nobody has really access. So it's a question of accessibility and who has the right to, yeah, like a hegemony of knowledge. Who has the right to tell which story? And so, but thank you, Meija. It's also important to say that's not the Weltkulturen Museum and the contemporary collection, as many people, as for example Yvette Mutomba, made very clear what is it's very progressive for an ethnographic museum to say, okay, there is not like, we don't think of the African continent and also think all the time about old African statues and art. There's a vivid contemporary art scene, and they were the first to collect it. So, but still, there is a shift in discourse 40 years later, and there's a different claim, and that's the thing I think I'm engaging, Ken Aïcha Sy is engaging, very different from very different contexts, and also what the students and yeah, yeah. Or you want to add something?
And I just wanted to add on to that, I think also with the booklet, when I think one of you mentioned it when we were discussing what we actually want to do as our end result in our project and what we want to dedicate our booklet to, it was always like a, you know, hin und her, back and forth, yeah, of who we want to focus on and who we want to centralize. And one of our options was to centralize, again, as mentioned, the critique against the institutions and kind of to highlight that hegemony. But then we decided it's kind of counterproductive, or again, it leaves us again stuck in this, you know, continuous cycle of just giving critical, you know, or just giving feedback but not getting anything back or not moving on from it. So I think with the booklet we really tried to decentralize the institutions and decentralize kind of, yeah, the West and the global North, and actually to, yeah, just have a highlight of the art, and without, or we did include critical aspects for sure, but yeah, to not have that as our main point.
Hello, my name is Larissa Förster, and I just wanted to make an offer. I'm here, here's a little prehistory to this. I actually happened upon this event thanks to Giwa. And I happen to be the new director of the Weltkulturen Museum. But but I happened upon this event. This means I'm coming unpreparedly, because I was actually in Berlin for a completely separate event, the Museums Labor, that some of you might know. And I was happy to introduce myself to Ken Aïcha Sy and to Alia Septi yesterday, and I've learned a lot. And it's interesting to listen. Maybe it's a privilege that I don't have that prehistory, and I don't know enough about the prehistory of the encounters between the museum, between your father, between yourself, etc. But the offer I can make, I think, goes a bit into the direction of Alia Septi, to say, I'd be interested in concrete suggestions how we can work together. I think we all are of the same opinion that ideally works should circulate much more, that knowledge should be co-produced, that work should be accessible, that knowledge should circulate. But there is, of course, this but, which is resources, which is legal stuff, etc., which is, for example, that Weltkulturen Museum does not have a permanent exhibition, which is one of the reasons why none of these works is on display. But this is valid, and it's equally true for the other 60,000 cultural belongings that we hold. So there is a dilemma, and as much as institutions and even curators in these transforming institutions nowadays would like to be as open as they can, sometimes there is this whole bureaucratic background. But I'm optimistic that maybe we can work on projects that we can have together. I think there is possibilities, and in terms of resources, the museum might be able to mobilize resources to help collaboration take place and more exchange. So I'm making this offer in more or less complete ignorance of the whole prehistory. I mean, I know bits and pieces of it, but not enough, because I've come here unpreparedly. But I also didn't want to be here undercover. So just, you know, I'm here, but I came to the museum only in January this year. But let us please enter into our conversation what we could do together in the future.
Thank you.
What a surprise. Nice to meet you. No. I think I think the time is almost over, but maybe there's a last question.
It's not a question, it's actually using the moment. I think it's wonderful that you're here. It's wonderful that we could listen to your experience. This morning I was extremely moved, and it's a chance. Please, let's use this chance we have today. There is a proposition of conversation. I'm a very practical person. Please, let's set a date. Let's discuss. However we can facilitate, just use me, the gallery, anything, but please use this moment and make it concrete, this proposition. Be in conversation, make it happen. It's very, I think it's a very unique moment. It's this moment, this shift, and you clearly, with your response, you show there is this shift and this will to be in conversation. Let's create synergy. And yes, Stefano, as you said before, it is very difficult at the moment. We have budget cuts, drastic ones. There are also, from also the Regierung, the government, the focus is also changing to a different topic, but at the same time, institutions are also people, and sometimes you have a chance to have people who are like-minded and want to contribute to this really necessary and super urgent changes. Because why I'm saying let's seize the moment, because a lot of these voices have already disappeared. Some of them are currently disappearing right now. So if we don't do it now, you know, in a few years it's too late. So let's just seize the moment. Please set a date. Yeah. and let's make it happen, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really true, yeah, what you said. And it's, I think, yeah, we want to continue, and we love to collaborate more with, as students at university, with the museums, and we will, yeah, and if we also connect further with you guys, that would be so grateful, and of course with Ken, and yeah, let's do something.
Yeah, and not forget, again, this is not a narrative from the Western country, so it's really important to not invite me, but invite this local perspective, yeah. Right? As I told to Mrs. Larissa yesterday, now people who are like the daughter, the son of those artists are contacting me. I am becoming like a kind of, I don't know what, but it's too much for me. Yeah. So it needs also to, as we discussed, maybe create a foundation or something who can also give a voice or give a seat to this table, to those family, to those students and experts in Senegal. And I know you already respect that because you are in this process, and this is also why we are here together. But again, we need to change swift, yes, the perspective, and add a more Afrocentric perspective on this. Yeah, just to.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah.